Happy Monday. Welcome to today's Chat with the Superintendent webinar. Before we get started, I want to go over just a couple little procedural things. If you haven't joined a webinar with us before, they are 30 minutes in length, including a presentation and a question and answer session. All the microphones are muted except for our presenters, but you can use your question chat module to submit questions. These are anonymous and will be asked to the panelists by the moderator. You'll have a chance to provide some feedback and comments after the webinar with a brief survey. We hope you take that. And this webinar is being recorded and will be archived on our website. Today's Chat with the Superintendent webinar panelists are our Superintendent David Alexander, and we are featuring our Director of Business Services, Diane Allison. My name is Jackie Tisdale, and I am your moderator. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Alexander.
Thank you, Jackie, and thanks to all of you who joined us today. We are always anxious to be able to share information with you. Today we have a special treat. We have Diane Allison, who has led our business department now for how many years now, Diane?
9.
9 years, and certainly has done a very special, impeccable job of pursuing excellence, as certainly is one of the things that we talk about a lot. Under Diane's leadership, our business department they've won a number of awards, and we're just really happy to be able to share with you some information today regarding our budget and the funds that we get from the state, the funds that we get. We get funding federally, and we have a lot of local dollars that comes from the generosity of our community, and we are certainly don't ever take it for granted when a community embraces its school system and the children in its community to have quality educational opportunities. It certainly pays off benefits to our children and to our community, as we've seen over the past few years. So again, thank you for joining us. We hope we're able to give you some good information today, and we're going to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Allison, who's going to share her high-level expertise with you at this time.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us on your lunch hour to talk about the school board's budget, one of my big passions. Basically, today our discussion is going to be about the general fund. We have many other funds as well, but this is the main operating account for the school board. Our major sources of revenue for the general fund come about 44% from the state through its minimum foundation program, which is MFP, which is presented by Bessie to the legislature. It's a very complex 4-tiered formula. Starts with a base per pupil amount of $3,961. The goal of Bessie is to fund public education 65% with state funding and 35% with local funding overall, with all the 64 districts and the various charter schools that are included in that program. What happens is if you have a growing district, you might get a little more, and if you have less students, you might get a little less. It changes every year, and it does depend on what is going on in other districts. In Ascension, we have very strong local revenues in the form of sales tax and property taxes, so the percent for Ascension is actually 44% instead of the state's goal of 65%. Another source of our funding is state and sales and use tax, which is in Ascension Parish. All sales in the entire parish, 2% of the local sales tax goes straight to the school district for that. Sales tax is our most volatile revenue source, which means it goes up and down depending on a lot of very, very different things, sometimes even what's happening in China, because our plants that pay sales tax and use taxes on their purchases operate in a global environment. So we have to watch that one very closely. Another major source of revenues are our parish ad valorem taxes, which are also property taxes. The school board assesses a total of 46.51 mills for operations of the school board in the form of property taxes. As the tax base increases, the revenue from the property taxes also increases. And we've had we've had ad valorem, most of the ad valorem percents on our books since about the mid-1990s, for the most part, some longer than others. And about 10% of our revenues are state grants and other kinds of sources. So with all of that combined, which is about $238 million for the school district for the current year's budget, what do we use that money for? And we use that money basically to provide a free and appropriate public education for the students who reside in Ascension Parish. We also use it for assisting students with special needs, which is everything from our gifted and talented students to reading programs to all kinds of assistance for students. We have career and technical education programs, a very robust program there. We also use it for extracurricular activities like band, athletics, to keep the fields, the athletic facilities in good shape and pay the salaries of our coaches. We have the digital learning that happens throughout Ascension, pre-kindergarten programs. We also have pupil support programs. Many of you are aware of how valuable the school counselors are as they help our students with college choices, school nurses, speech therapists, and other staff that help assist our students. We also use it for supporting teachers with their professional development, teacher coaches, and mentor teachers to get our teachers to be the best professionals they can be. We use those funds to stock our school libraries with the books and the software and the magazines and various programs. School administration, when you walk into a school building and you're greeted by many of the ladies sitting out front who are there to help you and assist you, principals, assistant principals, and school bookkeepers. District administration, which comes from everything in the superintendent's office to finance office, human resources, the purchasing, kind of the non-instructional. Facilities, that's a big chunk of our budget, about $24 million to maintain all of our school sites, our 28 school sites, and our various administrative buildings throughout the district. And that's just utilities, insurance, maintenance, custodial staff kind of thing. You know about our bus drivers who transport our very precious students throughout the district, the school buses, the maintenance shop that maintains those buses, the bus drivers, and also technology, that we're a big technology district and we like to have our students with one-to-one computing devices. Not sure if you realize, but in Ascension Parish, every student from first grade on up has their own personal computing device. Not very many districts can say that in the country, but because we have a dedicated 8 mills for technology, and through the years we have used that to build up that one-to-one program for our students. So general fund expenditures are about the same as our revenues, $238.8 million. The vast majority, when you slice it up by what we call natural classification, is salaries and benefits, 79%. And why is that? We have 2,900 employees, and at the end of the day, we provide a service, which is educating our students. It would be very different if we produced a product. We also have purchase services. Those include things like paying for professional services, our audit, our legal fees, our rental on copy machines, and we have T-building rentals, and our software subscriptions are a big part of that as well. And then we have material supplies and equipment, about 9%. Those are the textbooks and the workbooks that you see throughout the district, and consumable supplies that the district provides. So about how much does it cost to run a school district? This year we have $238.8 million. It averages about $19.9 million a month. When you include federal grants and capital projects and debt service funds, our self-insured fund, all funds together are about $402 million to include that. As you know, we have about 27 schools. We have a new one, Bullion Primary, will be online in August of 2019. 3 more new schools after that in August of 2020, and we have 3 programs, being our Head Start program with our youngest learners, early college option, and the Apple Digital Academy, which is e-learning. So the next question is, who decides how to spend this money? And it's basically a lot of people working together. Starts with directors who let the finance department know their needs and plan for things. The technology, transportation, and maintenance departments, they also work on their own budgets, and they will come up with various projects and tasks that they would like to accomplish in that year. All of those is what we want. We throw that in a budget and see how the revenues come out. And then the superintendent does the really hard work of looking at it all, because our goal has been for our expenditures not to exceed our revenues in a current year. So sometimes people don't get what they want, and you have to decide, well, we can't do that project this year, maybe next year, or can we phase it in over 3 years or something to that effect. So the superintendent works with the finance department to get that fine-tuned, and then the superintendent presents a budget to the board, a draft budget to the board. This usually happens in May, and explains all of the initiatives that are happening and all the numbers that are in the budget, and the board goes over that and asks a lot of questions and may tweak it a little bit. We hold a public hearing so the public can add input to it, and the board adopts a final budget generally in the month of June, because the fiscal year starts on July 1st. So this year's major budget initiatives include $2.4 million in major maintenance projects on 7 campuses. As you all can imagine, just like with updating your house, a lot of times you have a big desire to update facilities, but the money isn't always there. And so in past years, we've had to cut major maintenance projects for other things, particularly curriculum. But this year, we were really happy to be able to give them a big boost on those. And those projects are all listed in our budget document, which is on our website. We also have $2.2 million in curriculum. Because the state has changed a lot of content standards through the last years, we've had to buy new curriculum. So we've spent a lot of money on curriculum for our students, which of course is the most important thing that we do in Ascension Parish. And then we also, as we mentioned about the student computing device, so in the current year was when we added student computing devices in the hands of each of our first graders. 1,650 of those, so they can have those. And that was about $1.8 million. And then we're looking to buy school buses for our Head Start program. We recently took those school buses into the general fund, and now we realize some of those are older and we want to do that. Those were the initiatives from a long list that we decided we were able to fund this year. But the biggest thing is the challenges. And just like a lot in your household, the challenges really are there's never enough money to go around. So you have to prioritize. It's a very, very difficult task. And a lot of us really agonize over this task. It does keep a lot of us up at night. So we have to try to think of what is the best use. And at the end of the day, it's all about our students in Ascension Parish. It's all about what do our students need and getting them what they need. Sales taxes is another challenge because it goes up and down. It's very hard to estimate. We have to do the best that we can with that, and heavily reliant on a local economy. And you know that can change. Like when the flood of August 2016 happened, there were some changes in our local economy. Also, we have costs that rise every year. Salaries generally will rise because we have a standard, we call it a step increase, as each employee gains more years of experience, and then the costs that are added onto that, the retirement, the portion we pay to retirement will fluctuate. Most of the time it goes up. Every once in a while it might go down a little bit. That's determined by the legislator or a legislative body, and we have no control over that. So sometimes those costs will rise, and then we need a revenue source to keep up with those. And flood recovery has caused us to lose a little bit of our cushion as we were spending money to recover from flood and keeping our operations going. To the tune of our flood expenditures are estimated to be about $75 to $80 million. And as you know, we're on the back end of that with just Santa Ma High, the last pieces of Santa Ma High to bring back on for recovery, as well as some administrative buildings. So where is our budget document? You can get a copy of our budget. Anybody can. It is about a 170-page book, but I'm going to share with you some secrets to that book. And it is on our website in the business services section of our website. And all past budgets are reported there on our website. Some key pages to that document are on pages 40 and 41. There are the budget highlights that we just went over in greater detail. There are summary budgets on pages 52 to 53. And a real interesting part of that you're going to ask is, do we look to the future, and are we thinking about the long term? And we do financial forecasts out 5 years ahead of time, and those are also available in that budget document at the back. So it is a very large document. For 4 years, the document did earn the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. This is a program with very rigorous criteria. It is designed to be fully transparent so that that budget document will list for interested parties the whole budget process, a timeline of the events that occur, the policies that guide budget development, the budgets for every single fund. So we're very proud of earning that award and are proud to show you the full transparency of that. Some other things that are in that 170-page budget document, it does have a complete organization chart of the entire school district, that budget process and timeline, our policies, and information on a very interesting part that has been rated superior by the group that provides that award, is information on our capital projects and our debt and our service. That's our long-term construction projects that are going on, our strategic planning for there. And it does have some history, some statistical information that goes back for 10 years. If you have any questions about the budget, any more detail, you can feel free to contact me. My contact information is there. You can come to the office if you want. After you download the document, if you have some questions, feel free to call me or send an email, and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. And with that, I will turn it over for any questions.
All right. Thank you so much. That was a lot of information packed into a short period of time. And so I want to remind our attendees that if you would like to ask a question to any of our panelists, that you can type your question into the question chat module in your GoToWebinar panel, and that'll send your question anonymously to me, and I can ask that to the panelists. We do have our first question, and that is, in your presentation, you showed that there are some fluctuations on revenue, mainly some of your sales tax. When you have a lean budget year and you have to reduce your budget, how do you look to cut in what areas? What are your flexibilities there?
Well, first of all, and I'm going to let Diane help us with some details here, but just generally speaking, when we look at our revenue sources, you may be anticipating perhaps a reduction in sales tax, but you may have some increases elsewhere. So you got to look at the revenue package as a whole rather than just targeting one particular revenue source. And then there are always some essential things that you want to do. For example, perhaps you have a major maintenance project that you want to overlay a parking lot that really needs some upkeep or whatever. But you could maybe do some patchwork again for another year. So you have some alternatives out there in the world of maintenance. You have some there are places where we can deal with some discretionary areas for a period of time. Now, even a roof on a building, you're trying to schedule because you have, more than just 30 buildings out there. You have hundreds of buildings that Ascension Parish, the public in Ascension Parish owns through its school system. And so you're scheduling some maintenance in all of those buildings. There is a tipping point to where you can't keep delaying that maintenance because you end up spending more money in just doing damage control. But you could delay a few maintenance projects, waiting for a little bit healthier budget times in the future, some things like that. So there are places where you can make some discretionary decisions in some worlds out there that, other places you almost don't have any options. So you look at those places such as that. Miss Allison, you have anything to add there?
Not particularly. I think you did a very good job.
Thank you.
Well, our next question actually plays a little bit on that first question. Instead of looking at reducing the budget, what is the first step or the process for adding something to the budget? For example, if you have an idea, say in special education, that you would need to add funding for, what is the step process in getting something added to the budget?
Well, I'm going to let Diane, I know she's going to add into this very well, but something like a special education program, you got to understand that those are federal dollars that come into us. And so we assess, is there any margin there first? And then, in other ways here, if we know we're going to get some extra money, we've got to make a determination, will this be recurring extra money or is it going to be one-time money? And then we do have a priority list out there that we might want to go through. So in our long-term planning with a budget, we have a long list of things we'd like to do if the money were available. Say, for instance, we want to buy 8 buses over the course of the next 5 years, and I'm just making that up. That's not part of what we're doing. And to do so, we want to buy 3 this year, and we're planning to buy 2 the next year and 4 the next year, what have you. We might say, whoa, wait a minute. We have enough money. Let's go ahead and buy 5 this year rather than just 3, because we know over time we want to get to 8. And so we can accelerate some of the things that are in our long-term plan, things of that nature. Ms. Allison?
The process to add to the budget really starts with making sure the right person gets the suggestion, and that would be eventually to go up to the level directors for that, and then they will vet that, and there's a lot of things that they know that the person making them request may or may not know. We may have that in process. We may have an alternative to what's being suggested, or that may be in the long-term plan for that. And basically, you build a case for that. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was looking to have an intern in the finance department. I built a case for that. It was all good. We got it approved and we got it going. At the end of the day, so that is a want, not a need. At the end of the day, when we were trying to get the budget to balance, we realized that we needed to cut some expenses. So that was one of the first things that got cut. Number one, because it's non-instructional, and number two, we really want to focus more on the kids' education rather than on the non-instructional things. And this had never even been started yet. So it wasn't as if some program was going to be discontinued. The program didn't even get started. So that is an example of a program that might get delayed a year or 2 or 3 until the time is right for that. And the directors usually know that. A lot of times they have ideas in their budget, very similar things. But it starts with that, and then we throw it in the spreadsheet and see where it ends up. It's a very difficult decision to make what to cut. But at the end of the day, we want to be very strong financial managers of the very precious dollars that we have, and we need to remember that our focus is on educating our wonderful students in Ascension Parish.
Thank you. We have another question. And how will you use the tax renewal funds for the election on March 30th that are being communicated as essential funds? So how are those funds to be used?
Well, and first of all, I would invite those that are curious about more details there to attend these public meetings that we're going to have. Starting tonight at San Amaro High School, tomorrow in Donaldsonville, and next week we'll be visiting East Ascension High School and Dutchtown High School, I believe is the schedule. And certainly you get a lot more details about that. But these funds, and that's a great question, these funds began back in the 1980s and then again in the 1990s. These funds are used for a multitude of things that we do in our buildings, from simply turning on lights, to maintaining our buildings, to maintaining upkeep, to maintaining programs, not personnel, but maintaining the things we need in our programs. For we have nursing services, we have all kinds of services out there that we provide. Certainly maintenance of buildings is a huge piece in making sure that, first of all, everything works, and secondly, that everything's safe. We don't want to have unfixed door locks on buildings and things of that nature. So these monies are already being used for these essential things that we have. And, so that would be how we would continue to use the dollars that are that come from these two millages, the 7.4 and the 2.5, both dedicated to general operations and facilities. Diane, anything you want to add there? And again, come to some public meetings, send us an email. We'd love to get you more information. Our job between now and March 30th is to be sure you have the information you need so that you can make a good decision about what you want to do.
We have another question. Where can you find the priority list for financial decisions for Ascension schools? Is it available for review?
A priority list. Could we be a little clearer about what you're referencing there in terms of the priority list? We do have in our document, I know Diane knows where it's located specifically, a list of things that we do. Page 19 of our is that our budget or our CAFR? That's our budget book. Okay, so Diane is showing me right now a timeline on budget processes and some things that are scheduled out there. So if the questioner wants to add some detail to what that term priority they're referencing there, I'd be happy to try to answer more questions there.
Has not typed any additional information, but perhaps is there we mentioned in the budget process when there's a draft that comes to the board, would that be an ideal time for a member of the public to be able to view kind of the priorities for the budget for the next year?
Absolutely. Every year we put in, some major things. Like last year, some of the major things in our budget was buying additional Head Start buses, was doing some capital improvement processes, and dealing with curriculum and some things that we wanted to do there. So those would have been major initiatives in this budget, among others. And that's listed in our budget book. It's in a budget message page. One page I'm looking right now is budget highlights on page 40 and 41 if they want to go online and look at that. Miss Allison, anything else? No?
That's correct.
Thank you for that information. She was handy and knew exactly where all of it was.
We have one last question. I think we have 3 minutes left of the webinar, and this is actually not a budget-related question, but it could be something that you could possibly address. It's actually regarding roads. So talking about some roads around Prairieville Middle being challenges. It's not a budget question, but have the schools expressed any concerns to the Department of Transportation for addressing some of our road issues?
Well, I think we probably all share the same concerns about our roads, all the way down to our government officials there and our parish council. I think everybody is. That's a hot topic. Roads and sewers are the hot topic in Ascension Parish right now of our infrastructure. We recognize that some of our roads are substandard. I don't think anybody would deny that at all. And I know that everybody is trying to be as much a part of that conversation as possible. And then once you start actually finding some funds for that, I'm sure that they too have their own priority list and they have a reason for those priorities. I wouldn't be able to speak too deeply about that. Certainly, we are always, when we're invited to the table, sharing, with our parish councilman, which we've been invited on times. We work well with our other governmental agencies, be it the Sheriff's Department, be it the City of Gonzales, be it our Ascension Parish Council, to be in collaboration about where our obstacles, where our challenges are, and making sure that we understand not only the challenges, but sort of the steps towards solutions to some of those challenges. So, certainly around Prairieville, I realize, you could call it out right now. I can think of Henry Road, very narrow. We continue to travel that road safely, as does everybody else, but I know everybody's looking forward to the day where we can widen some of these spaces around some of these schools.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for questions. Want to make sure our audience knows that we will have another chat with the Superintendent Webinar on April 24th, and that topic will be enriching your child's summer as we go into summer school opportunities and summer camp opportunities. Ms. Allison, Mr. Alexander, do you have any closing comments?
Ms. Allison, anything?
Thank you so much for participating in today's webinar. Thank you for your interest in the budget, and we hope we're doing the best job we can for you.
So I would just like to add to that. First of all, I want to thank Diane for being here today and for taking the time to prepare all of this. It does take time to put these webinars together. And we're so fortunate to have to be benefactors for so many talented employees and leaders that work and serve our school district in all of our departments, both instruction and administration. We are just absolutely blessed to have the expertise of accountants and CPAs like Miss Allison to help us make sure that we remain good stewards. Stewardship is one of our 7 priorities in Ascension Parish. You can find those on our website. And we certainly want to be good stewards, not only of our money, but of our resources, our time, and everything that would be precious in terms of the experiences that we provide for children. We are very grateful that you joined us today. We hope we gave you, maybe, if nothing else, we whet your appetite for more information around the budget. We have a lot of documents out there you can go through and explore. I encourage you to do that. Send us questions. We'd be so anxious to answer them. We'll be happy to talk to you in person with phone calls. So the more you know about how we operate, the better off we all are. And then I want to close with happy Valentine's Week to everybody. I hope you have a great rest of February. We look forward to seeing you at some of these public meetings in advance to talk about the upcoming millage renewal on March 30th. Thank you so much.
Everyone have a wonderful Monday afternoon. This webinar will be recorded and posted on our website, and you can take a few moments to complete a survey when this ends and let us know if we can improve these webinars or if there are specific topics you would like us to cover in the future. Thanks so much.